everyone, and welcome to the Whale Talk podcast for the month of August. This month, we're going to be talking about some of the conservation mistakes some people make, the aftermath of my Salish Sea trip, and we're going to be covering grey whales on our species spotlight. I'm Cavone. Joining me, as ever, is a man who lives in a place where, when trying to write this joke, I decided I was going to look up the weather forecast, but it generally showed me this picture, for real. And I'm like, the joke writes itself. It's Geofits 4.
Hey, how you doing? Good morning. It's kind of weird being a Saturday morning instead of a Thursday evening,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
recording this with you.
this is such a better time zone for I think everyone.
Yeah, I feel less tired because like I'm not coming off
Oh,
of
for
a,
sure.
day of work and it's not late evening for you and you're
Yeah.
after a day of work and trying to go to bed so you can wake up the next morning,
My gosh,
you know.
11 o'clock on 11 p.m. on a Thursday. Yeah, that's a no go for me now. That's just
Mhm.
not gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah, I know it was rough on you. Like this works out just a lot better because I mean this is a natural time off for me anyways. So we'll be going Saturday mornings going forward for the live recordings of Whale Talk podcast here on Twitch on at Crone and live on the Whale Talk podcast YouTube channel. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah. This is actually the first time we're streaming to our YouTube channel. By the way,
Yeah.
if you are watching this live on stream, I need to say, uh, we will be deleting the VOD after. So the VOD won't stay up, but we will then upload the podcast as its own upload in the future. So that'll probably be next Sunday. Um, I've still got a video to finish working on for tomorrow. It's over now. It's Orca Watch, and of course it's trying not to make it about my trip there. But now I'm realizing, that's a weekly series. If I was over in the Salish Sea,
Hmm.
so I have so many things to tell about the Salish Sea as well. So I went out with two companies mostly for some my whale watching, like loads of whale watching. I even did two lots of kayaking, which I've not put the vlog together yet. I've not even started
Hmm.
putting the vlog together. So we what we've decided for the vlog, by the way, is that's going to be its own independent upload outside of our upload schedule. What I'm gonna do, the vlog's gonna be very long. So what I'm gonna
You
do
got a lot of
is
footage.
I'm not going to include all the footage. I'm going to include some footage from each day, from the photos. It's mostly because I just yap a lot. There's a lot of like the vloggy stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to release it in 20 parts, and it's going to be like a series, like a playlist.
Mhm.
It will be one part per day. Per day that I was there, and probably upload wise, it's going to be uploading one part per day. And you'll see how well I did on the bingo as well. I I almost completed the whole thing. I almost completed the
Almost.
whole card. Yeah.
Dang. That's good.
Shall I give a little bit of a spoiler of one of the bingo goals that I did get that I didn't think I would?
Sure.
There was a day where I saw more marine mammals than people,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, I like that one.
it was not the day that I thought it was going to be.
Wait, was that one I came up with, or did you come up with that one?
I came up with that, and I thought that
Okay.
was really good. You came up with the Meet a Florida Man, which I
Oh,
did on a
yeah.
boat actually, like
Yep,
on the first day.
I figured you would. I mean, there are Florida mans all over the country and all over the world. Like,
Florida Man, the
yeah,
plural
you
of Florida
never
Man.
you never know when you will run into a Florida man. It's just like also running into a Winnipeg man, that's quite an experience as well.
So these these two whale watching companies that I went on.
Mhm.
There was Myers Legacy, which I went on the all day tour, and then the Orca Behavior Institute led tour, which was amazing, by the way. Um, and then I went on two more tours with them. One was kind of unplanned. So if you didn't know, I had some drama getting back home. Um, the day I was going to fly out was the day that it was the only thunderstorm of the year in the San Juan Islands. The planes were cancelled. There was actually a ground stop at Seattle Airport. Um, it was that bad. They actually made the news, and so I was stuck. I'm a grand out of pocket because I had to reorganize stuff, and the insurance decided that they're not going to pay out. So that sucks. Um, but so I had to rebook everything, like all my connections, like within a short period of time. Had to find a hotel I could stay for the night on. I know I was still on the island, and by the time all that ended, like it was like 2:30 in the afternoon, and I'm like, I might as well go whale watching, right? So I booked the latest whale watching tour I could, and I had an amazing experience on that boat. Though it was weird being whale watching in an actual thunderstorm where you could see lightning in the distance and you were in the rain cloud. Um, that was a new experience. So it was fantastic. It was also fantastically cold. I have never
Yeah,
been that cold at sea.
yeah, and that's I think that's something you don't always expect when you go up to the especially the West Coast, getting up, like San Francisco and north in the summer, it can be a lot colder
Mm,
than you'd realize. Like my first time ever being out on the West Coast, and actually now that I think about it, my only time actually being out on the West Coast, I was probably 19 or 20, and I went to a convention in downtown San Francisco, and it was like July 31st, like basically this time of year. It was like, right at the end of July, beginning of August. And like in Florida, this is right now we are at our peak for heat and humidity and it being awful
oh, I
outside.
can
July
imagine.
and
Yeah.
August. Yet July and August are absolutely brutal. I mean, this is where we're talking, it's generally 96 degrees, which if I do a really quick Google is about 35 and a half Celsius. Like that's are going to be our typical high, but
But what's the
you're talking
humidity?
well, yeah, you're talking about a feels like temperature that's more like 40 or 41 Celsius, getting up around 105, Fahrenheit, sometimes
Mm,
even getting up to like 110, which would be about 43 Celsius. So, like, you know, that's what I was used to, right? So I packed t-shirts and shorts. That's all I had. And I
yeah.
get out to San Francisco and instead of being, at least in the 80s, like if it had been in the 80s, I would have been pretty comfortable. But the highs were like 72 degrees, 22 Celsius. Like that's air conditioning
Oh,
temperatures.
damn.
Yeah, because in San Francisco proper, because of where it is in the valley and off the cold Pacific waters, they stay so cool during during a lot of the summer, and like it was shocking to me. Like I needed to have pants and like a hoodie, to stay warm, and I was freezing. Like I think I ended up going and like buying a hoodie or a sweater or something just to walk back and forth between the convention center and the hotel. So like, yeah, I think sometimes you'd be kind of surprised at how cold the Pacific Northwest can be even in the summer. But then in the winter, it's not that cold either because the same effects that, keep it cool in the summer, keep it warmer in the winter.
Yeah. I I'm gonna be honest, I wore jeans more days than I wore shorts. Also I was
Hmm.
there. Now,
Yep.
granted, there was the whole factor of me going out on a boat and the
Yeah,
quicker
water.
boat, like the water temperature makes a difference, the wind.
Hmm.
Like basically you're on the boat, you can take like 10, 15 degrees off that,
Hmm.
whatever the
Yeah.
temperature is outside. So
Yeah.
I so on this other company that I went out with, Salmon Safaris. I do want to give them a massive shout, and I think at least one of them does watch these podcasts. Um, I want to give them a massive shout because they did something really nice for me on the supposed to be last day until my plane got cancelled, and so I booked 18 or 19 trips with them, boat trips. So like value customer. They made me the VIP customer on the last day, and
Mhm.
um and it's so in the morning I was gonna buy a t-shirt in their shop, and the lady on the desk is like, I wouldn't buy anything right now, and I'm like, oh, so the end of the day, like after my last trip, Um, it was the actual boss of the company. He was also the captain. He said,
Mhm.
yeah, "Don't go anywhere after the trip." They give me a massive goodie bag, and I'll show you just some of the things that they gave me. I do have a hat which is in my wardrobe, like a winter hat. Um, I got a couple of t-shirts. I got a water flask. So this one you've been seeing me use on stream actually, because it's way bigger than the one I had before. It's just nice to have, and I got a ton of stickers. I've not stuck them anywhere yet. I think I can stick them on the water bottle, um, like die-cast stickers. God, I've got so many of them. Um, so these, like now I'm not really a stickery person, but I feel obliged to stick these on something when I go there next time. So I don't know where I'm gonna stick them, but I'll find somewhere.
Mhm.
They also got me this, which is a card, and it's I won't show what's inside it, but it's some really really nice comments. It. I mean, you'll see on the vlog. That brought me to tears.
Mhm.
Um, and this is probably the most observant thing I saw, like that they've given me. So it's a pack of 3 mini notebooks, and so just to say what I was doing in the San Juan Islands, and no one actually. Well, no, some people would have seen the notebook. No one would have seen it on the boat because I never actually took it out on the boat. I always like took it out after or before, like I was writing scripts and things like that. Um, but actually, no, I've got it here. Also, merch plug. Um, so this was a journal that I was keeping, and inside the journal are all my sightings reports, all of them, plus like script stuff. So I just give a little bit of a display of what I have written in there. So I was like writing down IDs, where I saw them, and like anything that's like special or extraordinary. So
Yeah, it's a good habit.
I did mention that I was keeping a log. So the fact that they got me these field notebooks, I'm like,
Mhm.
someone was listening.
Yep.
Someone was listening.
Yeah, that's
Um,
really cool.
yeah, that was really cool. Um,
Yeah, and
where
I find that generally people that are like in those kind of jobs where they're watermen, and waterwomen, but that, they are doing a lot of especially touristy kind of things, tend to be, pretty good people, pretty nice people.
oh
Because
yeah,
and part of it's because
these.
you have to be, you know, but
I mean,
the ones that aren't, don't make it very long. Because like if you're not nice, if you're not personable, if you're not, if you don't have good, good customer service to your people on the boat, like your business isn't going to last. So usually they tend to be good people like that.
you also have to be passionate as well, and that's something
Mhm,
I definitely noticed with both the crew of Maya's Legacy and the crew of Salmon Safaris.
mhm,
They were passionate about what they did, like, and very knowledgeable as well.
mhm.
Very knowledgeable indeed.
Yep.
And
And, like, that's what I like about with the dolphin cruise operators that I've, gone with out here is, they do take the time to educate themselves. They go to, Moat Marine, they go to the Sarasota Dolphin Research, project. They follow the safety, guidelines, and all of that because, it's important to them and they're passionate about, our waterways and our wildlife, in this area, and it shows through.
yeah, I just realized on our actual layout for the podcast, so we have the names the wrong way around now.
Yeah, they are.
I need to fix that at some point. Um,
Yeah.
Also, someone asked me what boat this is above me.
Mhm.
To see if it was Soundwatch. I need to get that image to see if it was actually Soundwatch. Because I've got a video coming out soon. I've not even started working on putting it together, but I have like all the recordings, all the media stuff, all prepared and in the right place. So that won't take long. I don't think there's going to be a lot of editing to have to do on that. I have some audio to sync up. That's about it. So that video is going to be on the Whale Museum, and that's probably going to be, I want to say, the third or fourth upload of August. I do also have another like collection of short stuff that I filmed whilst I was out in the Salish Sea that I'll be uploading as this is a different kind of content. This is the only time you'll get this kind of content. Uh, yeah. So we're 17 minutes into this podcast. Shall we start with some
Which
whale facts?
which usually comes about 3 minutes into the podcast, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, one of our topics of this podcast was aftermath of the Salish Sea trip. I think that's ticked off now.
Yeah,
Um,
we already covered that. We're just doing
yeah,
things a little out of order, but hey,
yeah.
we're having fun,
So, do
and
you
that's
want
what's
some
important.
facts about whales?
I love whale facts.
Okay. So the first one: it is very difficult for a human to know a whale's date of birth. It is equally as difficult for a whale to know a human's date of birth.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just like obvious. Um, I mean, these all are obvious. Did you know that no whales currently listen to podcasts? However, if they did, we're pretty sure here at Whale Talk Podcast that we have the perfect name to gather a large whale audience. I'm pretty proud of coming up with that one. It's it's kind of coincidence that we are the Whale Talk Podcast, and so our last whale fact: um, orcas, zebras, and pandas are not in the same family, despite their shared love for the shades of black and white.
And for all of our shark friends out there who come just for the shark content, great white sharks can detect a single drop of blood in 25 gallons of water. They remain, however, completely unable to detect sarcasm in any amount of water.
I love that.
I thought that was a good one.
Uh, I like the Stark facts that we come out with every so often.
Mhm.
I feel like we beat up on sharks quite a bit here
Yeah,
because
but
they're not whales, they're not dolphins.
yep,
They're
just whale
cool.
sharks.
Don't get us wrong. We think sharks are awesome. By the way, um,
Yeah, they are sharks are important to our ecosystem, just like whales, just like orcas. I mean, they fit within the food chain, and they are just as their conservation is just as important to whales as whale conservation is to sharks.
yeah, it's it's like sport where like we're supporting the whale and dolphin team, but there's also a shark team.
Hmm.
That like they're
We
important. It's just not who we
we
support.
we love the sport of conservation. We just like the team of whales and dolphins a little bit more than sharks.
Yeah, like a lot of people like an underdog story. Like we we
Mhm.
we prefer the one that's always winning. Sorry, great white shark, you're still
Oh.
an underdog.
Free
We're
Willy over
we're gonna
Jaws.
get comments about sharks now for sure.
Mm.
Great white
All right,
sharks
we
are
ready
underdogs.
to get into our topic?
Yeah. Okay. So mistakes we feel that people make sometimes during conservation, and I kind of I've been kind of trying to talk about this on the podcast for a while, like finding the right way to approach it, because we do make a lot of mistakes, and I think the place I really want to start with this is what kind of sparked me to decide this now is the time to talk about this. Um, I First of all, I want to talk about like some of the issues with like captivity and the fact there's no sea sanctuaries available to take captive whales and dolphins, and we're seeing all the fallout of that now. And I'm going to be having a video about captivity and sea sanctuaries probably around October time. I struggle to not say October there.
I was gonna say, you mean Orcatober?
Yeah, that's a fundraiser for WDC. But no, the real thing that sparked me wanting to talk about this was um, one person on a boat trip that I was on. And I was on this boat trip. It was the Orca Behavior Institute led boat trip. And there was this guy. I I have the impression he was like drunk or something. I'm gonna be honest. It's like it was really loud, really boisterous, and kind of a little bit disrespectful. I'm gonna be honest. But he kept saying, like when they were talking about the harbor seals who are carrying capacity, he kept saying, "Oh, it's just we should just cull them." And so, if you guys haven't seen the latest short we have on the video on the channel, or the latest news video on the channel, you'll know that this kind of sparked me to actually make a short about like a news short about this, because it's something that's kind of important, because like your coal seals is going to have some knock-on effects that you don't realize are going to happen. Like you cull the seals, the hake are going to come back in big numbers, and potentially even cause the salmon to go extinct. You never know. And so many times with conservation, humanity has a tendency of not thinking about the ecosystem as a whole, or they'll think, okay, we can just pin the blame on this other species and like hold that species, and that'll solve the problem. There's a big thing. There was a big thing about the Dartmoor ponies in the UK recently. That's kind of resolved now, where they were going to cull them, and there's only about 1,000 of them. And I like having lived on Dartmoor and seeing these ponies several times in my life. I was like, why? And you had farmers that spoke up that said, oh, we shouldn't be culling them. And you've just got one person in the government saying we should cull them. You've got the people he says that he represents, the farmers, saying we shouldn't cull them. Like, why is there even a proposed cull? And there has to be a big mention on the current political uh, climate as well. And I mean, a lot of people immediately think of like the political climate in the US. I'm I'm not gonna say it's just the US. The UK have been slacking on conservation issues. France is slacking on conservation issues, um, like Spain as well, like Europe, like it seems to be getting worse and worse pretty much everywhere. So I wanted, and when our political leaders are so against conservation, we need to take it upon ourselves to try like different approaches, try more practical approaches to conservation. And so, okay, do you have, first of all, I've spoken a lot. Do you have any thoughts on what I've said, Gio? Gio has gone quiet.
Oh, sorry, I had to hit the mute button for a second because I had to sneeze. Um,
That's fair.
yeah, so when you had brought this topic up, I immediately had, my brain just fired off to a memory of reading a Wikipedia article a long time ago. So I had to go look it back up to find it. But it was this story about the Chatham Island black robin of New Zealand, which gives us one of the best examples of well-intentioned conservation being counterproductive. So by 1980, there were only 5 individuals left, and there was only one breeding pair. And there was, only the one female and one male that were, having any babies. So conservationists, in an effort to increase the population, they would take her first clutch every year and place them in the nest of the Chatham species of the tomtit. And this took advantage of a natural black robin behavior of raising a second brood if their first is unsuccessful, as well as the tomtit's natural parenting instincts to raise the first brood as their own. So essentially, they were able to double the output of this, one breeding pair of black robins. And this conservation effort was effective and quickly built up a population of breeding black robins. Now, you'll probably right here go, oh, well, what's the obvious problem that this creates? Well, inbreeding, right? Because when you have a population where you only have one common ancestor, you would think that that would quickly lead to inbreeding. But that hasn't been the case, over the years. And that actually kind of leads to some conclusions that possibly they have experienced this kind of population collapse in the past, and and potentially enough times that they've basically bred out any of those bad genetics that would happen from inbreeding, and were able to rebuild populations in the past. So that has actually not been that much of an issue. However, what was an issue was that it was noticed that some of these new females, these later generation females, would lay their eggs along the rim of the nest rather than in the center, and it was about half of the females that were out there that were doing this. So normally, natural selection would take care of those that genetic trait, but well-intentioned conservationists started to move the eggs to the center of the nest to continue to grow the population. Eventually, the genetic behavior, like I said, spread over to half of the females, and it was quickly understood that human intervention was the causation. They stopped helping the birds, and the population continued to recover, while natural selection reduced the once 50% of rim-laying females in the population to only about 9% as of 2011. The species is still vulnerable, but has rebounded to a population of around 300 individuals. Starlings and other introduced predators, as well as normal climate and human activity, are the main threats like many species face around the world. But this is one of those like legendary almost examples and cautionary tales of what can happen when you have human intervention. Even with the best intentions, you can still get it wrong, because because quickly they realized, oh, if we keep doing this, this is going to become unmanageable.
I think this is a problem with any direct approaches which insert humans as some kind of force inside that ecosystem.
Mhm.
It's always better, like if we are causing something to hamper these species, it's always better for us to reduce our impact rather
Mhm,
than try and take like additive measures. For instance, I want to talk about like salmon and how sometimes they'll like catch salmon and they'll put their eggs like where they need to be,
mhm.
and and all these protections on like juvenile. I don't really know where I'm going with this, to be honest, but there has to still be some natural selection
Mhm.
because so for the southern resident killer whales, they need they need not just Chinook salmon, but they need big and healthy Chinook salmon. And those big and healthy Chinook salmon are the Chinook salmon that have survived natural selective pressures. The small and weedy ones would normally die out and they wouldn't be
Mhm.
able to reproduce. So we also have to think about how how our actions impact the genetics of these populations as well.
Yeah, and it's and I think in salmon in particular, it's you really have this struggle of balancing short, medium, and long term, goals and effects, right? Because in the short term, you need to keep the population going enough to, give time for the medium and long term, processes to take effect, and not lead to a collapse of the ecosystem before you can ever save it. But, at the same time, without doing damage, too much damage with those short term, activities that the mid and long term become, out of reach because you have to have that chronic human touch to, keep a population going.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many examples all over the world with like the bigger picture in ecosystems where, for instance, people will think, okay, so we got an overpopulation. Okay, let's say like we've got an overpopulation of seals. Let's say there's no bigs. Just as an example, seal population is going crazy. Okay, so what are your options? Um, cull them. Okay, if you cull them, that's going to increase the amount of their prey, which are predators of another species, which is going to have loads of impacts. And also, more prey might actually mean that they reproduce more as well, the seals. So you're having unintended consequences, and it's not really going to achieve what you're trying to do. Okay, so what's another thing? You can introduce a predator. Okay, let's say you introduce big orcas in the hope that they'll start eating seals. Okay, they start eating seals, they start reproducing. Then suddenly they start hunting other things like sea lions or minke whales. And by the way, this is all hypothetical. I'm using this as a framework for an example. Let's say, for instance, sea lions and minke whales are endangered, but these orcas that you put in to eat the seals have now kind of shifted their prey preferences to these better prey sources, who now you've introduced a predator that's not hunting what you want it to hunt and hunting the other things that you don't want it to hunt. Now you got a problem. And there's so many instances where they've introduced a predator like this, and it's just had a complete unexpected uh, um, effect like this. Okay, so
And
you can't.
the funny thing about that is we have a whole, classic, kind of folk song, about this, and it's called "I Know an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly." 'Cause she swallowed a fly, and then she swallowed a spider to catch the fly, so she swallowed a bird to catch the spider, swallowed a cat to catch the bird, swallowed a dog to catch the cat, swallowed a goat to catch the dog, swallowed a cow to catch the goat, swallowed a horse to catch the cow, and that's where it ends with the classic "She's dead," of course.
Yeah.
It's literally that, like, that's literally the the parable lesson that you were just saying. When you introduce something, it's like, oh well, now that's a problem, so I have to introduce something else to deal with that problem, but then in something else to deal with that problem, and it's a never-ending chain until you've killed the ecosystem.
This also goes to introducing things like chemicals as well. Now, chemicals won't go and eat something. It won't go and eat something else, but like you use a pesticide, for instance, it might kill off something else that's useful, like bees, for instance. So,
And then it might also, then the death of those things might also cause the growth of other things,
oh yeah,
you know,
like a
that
different kind of like weed, for instance.
mhm, yeah. The ecosystem is a delicate balance.
And you know what
And
else an
actually,
ecosystem is?
yeah, go ahead.
It's self-balancing.
Mhm. I think I also found that I also just thought of another parable, along those lines. That would be the Star Trek Voyager episode Year of Hell, where this man has he basically exists out of time and outside of the timeline, because he has this time ship where he can essentially go and make something disappear from time, and then that changes the whole timeline. And he's kind of on this Captain Ahab white whale chase of trying to return his basically his nation, his government, to its former glory before he messed things up. And he's just constantly trying and trying and trying, and then ultimately in the end the story is resolved by removing the ship from the timeline and removing all of its actions and returning the timeline back to where it was. That was the solution all along.
Yeah, because every time you take an effect in an ecosystem and it causes an unexpected response, you have to respond to that. That's gonna, and it just snowballs
Yeah,
exactly like in the example you just said.
it's a chain
So
reaction.
so really that leaves us with one solution. Let's say we've got these overpopulated seals. Which, by the way, like real talk, they are not overpopulated. They are exactly where they should be. They're at carrying capacity. But man, this is still a hypothetical scenario. But now, no, let's actually talk about the real scenario here. So the real scenario is there's a lot of bigs. The bigs population are growing. The seal population is stable. The seal are hunting these hake. Yes, they are taking some salmon, but they're taking mostly hake and what was the other one? I think sardines. So
Well,
okay,
then
if you
it from the graph that you showed in the short, it looked like they are fairly opportunistic, eaters. Like it depends on what's available and what's the easiest
well
at any given time of the year.
well 50% of their diet is on two species entirely. So that's like a
Mhm,
quarter of their diet each, and then the rest of their 50% is split between a lot of different fish species. So that is a generalist like opportunist, but they do very much prefer the hake and the sardines, and the hake are the what's eating the juvenile salmon.
mhm,
But if people think that there's too many seals, the best solution is do nothing. Because if there's too many seals, if the population, if the ecosystem cannot sustain that many seals, like let's say there's too many seals, they're eating too much prey. Okay, well, what's going to happen in the ecosystem? There's going to be less prey, which means some of those seals are going to starve. The seals will die out because of lack of food. That will balance itself. And when there's less seals, their prey will increase again. And eventually it will get to a level where it's manageable. But also, let's say there's too many seals. Let's say there's enough food. What else is going to appear? More bigs, because suddenly the bigs have way more food to eat. So the ecosystem will balance itself out. It's consider it as supply and demand kind of thing. Hello, OG. Welcome on in. So the other thing that I kind of wanted to touch on when it comes to conservation here and doing things the right way is you have to account for the fact that there are some people in the world that don't give a damn about the environment. They don't give a damn about ecology. They don't give a damn about conservation. They only care about one thing, and that's money. So, but the thing is, you need these people to play ball with what you're trying to do with conservation. So, the only way that you can actually engage with these people is through money. So you need to make it financially a financial incentive in some way for these people to respect your conservation ambitions. So if we're gonna say, okay, my own thoughts about electric cars aside, let's say we're trying to get people into electric cars so that we use less petrol cars. And I should just say my own opinion is I don't think electric cars are the long-term goal, the long-term solution. Um, But let's say we're trying to get people to get electric cars, but the electric cars are way more expensive than the petrol cars. People that don't care about the environment are not going to get the electric cars.
Mhm.
However, if those electric cars are cheaper, they might go for those electric cars, not because they care about the environment, but because it's cheaper. And
Mhm.
if that's helping the environment, you know what? Regardless of whether the people are helping the environment because of goodwill or because of money, it's the same goal. And
Yeah, and I think another thing that you see, towards that in EVs is, you're now that the technology is maturing more and, not to get too political, but, like, when Tesla, came onto the scene, that really changed a lot of the perception on EV because it was seen more as a higher end brand, not these like kind of bare utilitarian cars that EVs and even a lot of hybrids had been up to this point. And so I think that was another big thing that where it's like, oh well, they might not care about the environment or it being the cheapest, but they do care about it being the coolest car. So like I think
yeah.
you're starting to see more of that maturity. Like with Rivian is another brand that I've started to see a lot in my area, and I live on the edge of a wealthier area, so I do see a lot of high end cars. Like I see a ton of BMWs and Mercedes, but I see Aston Martins and Lambos and Ferraris and so many Porsches. So like there's a lot of higher end car drivers, but I've been starting to see a lot of Rivians around, and a lot of it's because when you look at them, like they don't look like a boring EV. They don't look like a boring car. They actually look like nice, more luxury cars.
Yeah, so basically that's not a financial incentive, but that's another incentive. So you have to
Yeah.
incentivize these people to respect. One great example of how finances are being used to incentivize better animal welfare is captivity, where like organizations, conservationists, people that care about animals, we've given up. We've given up speaking to these captive parks like face to face because they are not going to listen. They don't think they're in, well, they know they're in the wrong, but they don't care. They're getting money. So you can't approach them directly. So what do? You make it not financially possible for them to keep captive cetaceans, i.e., you convince people not to go. You reduce the amount of customers they get. They make less money. You give them bad publicity, such as with this is something that the documentary Blackfish did, which was amazing for getting rid of captivity. You're speaking to these captive parks on a level that the only level that they will be able to understand: loss of revenue. So, and we're seeing now this is like we're seeing captive parks like shutting down like left, right, and center, and in addition to that, we also do have like governments are starting to ban this kind of stuff as well because like public pressure, like these. So these like these politicians, maybe no, maybe most of the politicians don't care about the environment. What they do care about is being re-elected. And if
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that are very for an issue, and that politician like is that, let's say no politician is supporting that issue, and there's a lot of people that really care about that issue, you know what? Someone has to start dealing with that issue. One of those politicians have to start dealing with that issue because they will get more voters, and voters are key. Voters
Mhm.
are key for politicians. They don't. They're not the ones that are going to care about money. They're the ones that are going to care about getting your vote. So you have to speak to people in ways that they can understand. And I also want to make a comparison with fishermen here as well, with conservation of fisheries. And I know I've mentioned this a lot with you. Um, as conservationists, marine conservationists that are trying to conserve fish populations, we do not want to be alienating fishermen. We do not want to be painting fishermen as the villain. They are not villains, they are allies. Because what is one thing we as conservationists want that the fishermen also want? More fish. So why are we fighting with fishermen when they want the same thing? Instead, we want it for different reasons, but we want the same thing. So that's where we can find a middle ground where like we can get them on board to help with some of these conservation issues. So I think it's very important to think about that. Like find allies, like think how you can communicate people, think what the incentive and motivation of certain people are, and then like level them on that. And I also think another thing is a lot of people have like pushback if you start like removing things as well. If you're like, oh, we can't be stocking this weed killer now because it's bad for the environment. Well, people are not going to like that because what do they do for their weeds? What you do is you replace it with something else. You replace it with something that's better. It's not the end goal that you want, but it's a middle ground. It's a middle step. It will make a difference. It won't make the full difference, but at least something is better than nothing. Okay.
Mhm.
I I was a bit passionate on this one.
Mhm. Yeah, you ready to move on to the species spotlight?
Oh yeah, I have some media for this one as well. And by the way, I mostly didn't even write notes for this, even though there's like a page and a half of notes of it. Um, I mostly didn't even write notes on it because I can just explain it off the top of my head. So this might be a little bit of a longer species spotlight. So we today are going to talk about grey whales. And let me see, there we are. Gio, where can I put you? Um, you can you can have
You can
this.
always make me smaller.
You can be
There
there.
you go.
We're gonna have the growers instead. So this is where I present my brand new co-host of the Well Talk podcast. This is CRC. And okay, okay, that's that. I can't remember the ID off the top of my head. Where is it? It's somewhere. CRC 2702. He's replacing you, Gio. Sorry. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so grey whales. What are grey whales? Grey whales are a whale that is grey. Um, okay, so I'm going to give some interesting information about grey whales, and I'm not going to explain this until later on. So, did you know Geo, that most grey whales are right-handed, but that a small
Oh, really?
minority are left-handed.
Interesting.
Okay. Do you know why?
Why?
Well, okay, I'll explain a little bit later.
Oh, okay. Well,
Um, so, okay, by the way, you did give me a question on grey whales during the quiz that we did during June. I didn't forget that.
you
Okay,
did.
okay, so grey whales, they are extinct. In wait, maybe wait, hang on, what order is this? I've done my notes in. Okay, so
Interesting information, then range.
and then taxonomy. Let's talk about taxonomy. So they are of the
Mhm.
Estrictius genus. I butchered that, but we'll keep it going. And they are the last remaining species in the genus. They did share the genus before with an extinct species of whale. Geo, don't look. Wait, hang on. You're already on the page. So the Akishima whale, who I was not able to name in the quiz, and I did actually have to look up for this as well, was the other species in the genus. So picture this as like the Asian gray whale, and like the other gray whales are like the other gray whale. So by the way, we do have that quiz on YouTube. If you search back, it released in July, I believe it released. I think it released right at the start of July. Also, we have a Northern Resident video out. That's still pretty current because there's a lot of Northern Residents about. Um, so these grey whales, they are extinct in all but the Pacific Ocean. They live within close proximity to the coast, so they don't go out to sea or anything. And they can be found depending on where in the year, when in the year. They can be found from Mexico all the way to Alaska and the north of the Bering Sea. And they can also be found in very, very small numbers down to down to the south of China. That population that goes down the Asian side, we're talking about like I think double figures in terms of population. They're not doing well at all. So they don't occupy this range all year round. They are highly migratory, and they take one of the longest migrations in the animal kingdom, and they do this every single year. And this is kind of a bit of a famous migration. I know a lot of people know about humpback migrations being the longest. Grey whales are up there as well. They challenge that. So they famously travel from the Arctic waters of the Bering Strait all the way down to Baja, California. And also, fun fact: in the Baja, California, they I almost said spawn. They're not fish. They give birth in these lagoons, and they stay there. Like they're kind of warm, small lagoons, and there's like loads of them. And uh, there are whale watching trips, and they even apparently, based on what someone told me on a boat that I was on, uh, they actually come up to the boat and allow people to actually touch them. Now, I should say it's not a good thing for people to touch whales because we can give them bacteria, they can give us bacteria. It's mutually beneficial to just not touch each other. Um, so these grey whales, as you're seeing on screen, they are grey and they have a lot of scars, barnacles, things like that, and almost no dorsal fin. They do not have a straight, smooth head, as the more commonly thought of baleen whales, such as the rorquals. The rorquals being like the blue whale, the humpback whale, fin whale, those kind of things. And they also don't have throat pleats. Now, I also have a video that I'm going to show in a second of one of these. And so there's, I think this is one of the hardest species of animal, well, hardest species of cetacean to photo ID individuals, because you have to use scars, marks, and pigmentations, which can change over the period of their lives. And they don't they don't they don't lift their tails when they dive, so you can't really use that as ID. Okay, we got a question. Do I keep a whale journal or just buy a photograph? I kind of do both. So, okay, so we'll get back to grey whales in a second. So I keep the journal with notes on who I saw when. But how I'm organizing my photos and videos are in folders with the names of the individuals or the groups of the individuals and by date. So I do have them arranged by date and individuals. So I kind of got a bit of a journal in terms of how I organize my photos as well. So I know which is which, particularly with humpback whales, which I can't ID yet myself. So let me show you this video actually. So this is the video I took in the Salish Sea of one of these grey whales. It's not a super long video, but this came really, really close. And they're really not that shy at all towards boats, which is kind of a problem because they are under threat from boat strikes. We'll get into the threats to them soon, because this is genuinely a species of baleen whale that could one day become extinct in our lifetime. So, by the way, Gio, if you got any questions about grey whales, like feel free to
No, you're doing a
ask.
good job. You're doing a good job covering it.
Okay, so their life cycle. So basically, they are born. Well, not basically. Why do I keep saying basically all the time? I don't know if anyone's picked up on this, but they are born in Baja, California, and they will then go with their mother up all the way to the Arctic, and then that's typically when they won't be with their mother anymore. And so they'll feed in the Arctic during the summer months. They'll eat as much as they can, build up blubber, like fat reserves. And the reason for this is to sustain themselves, because as soon as they finish eating up north, they'll go down south to warmer waters to breed. And at this point, they do not eat. So they don't eat from when they leave the Arctic to when they get back to the Arctic, which means you have these grey whales making massive migration all the way south to Baja, California, giving birth and then breeding again. And then, like, the mother will also be nursing a calf as well. And then they'll have to go all the way back up north. And then finally they can eat again. So they basically eat only like half the year. They fast the rest of the half of the year. However, there are some individuals that do stop off in the Salish Sea to eat, and that's what you were seeing on screen. This grey whale was feeding, which was fantastic to see. So there are a small population that do that, and I think they may even be whales that don't go up to the Arctic. I think they may actually just stay in the Salish Sea and then go back down south. So there is that. And so what do they eat? They eat benthic invertebrates. And so basically, benthic invertebrates, they're stuff that live in the substrate on the seafloor. So things like crustaceans or, like shrimp, things like that, krill. And the way they do this is actually, they don't use their baleen to filter water. They don't like gulp in the water. They will turn on their side and they'll scrape along the ground. They'll scrape along the substrate and like the sand and things like that. and they'll just scoop it all up into their mouth. And then they'll use their tongues to push out all of the substrate and sand through their baleen. So that's how they filter feed. They don't filter out water, they filter out substrate. And you may have noticed I said that they turn on their side to do this because, I mean, you can't really like scoop up if you're going directly down. You have to be on your side, increase the surface area of your baleen, just get more in your mouth. That's where being right-handed and left-handed comes from. Most of the grey whales will do this on the right side of their body. They will turn, and it's the right side of their mouth that will be going through the substrate. However, there's a small amount that are left-handed and do this on the left side, and they always do this. So, and I'm pretty sure the proportion between right-handed and left-handedness within grey whales is quite proportionally similar to that of humans as well. And the way they know that they do this is from scars and scratches on the side of the face, and also the baleen is quite a bit more worn on the right side than the left side. So now these whales, they are a success story. Well, they were. They were hunted quite substantially by whalers back in the day, but then eventually they did bounce back, pretty much like humpback whales. However, in the last 5 years, they have had a shocking decline, and it's so alarming. This year set the all-time record at that point in the year in May for strandings with grey whales. And in these strandings, it was reported anything that could have contributed towards a death. So almost all of them were malnourished. In fact, I think all of them were malnourished. Some of them showed signs of blunt force trauma as well. So it means one cause that's kind of hampering things is that they are being hit by boats. They're being struck by boats. There's even one that was struck by a jet ski in May that I covered as well in a news story. And so we need to be a lot more sensible with boats near them. But the big thing, malnourishment. It's thought that due to climate change, this is causing their food to be less present or less abundant in places where they need to eat. So they're not able to eat enough in the summer to sustain themselves for the rest of the year, which is why the population that eats in the Salish Sea, for instance, is generally a little bit more stable than the rest. So they were also listed to have threats. But this is by the WDC webpage that I'm getting the other threats, is that they're also susceptible to chemical and noise pollution as well. And entanglements. Now, entanglements is another big thing. Entanglements endangers every animal. And yeah, we need to do something to help them. But you have to think, what can we do if it's climate change that's affecting what they're eating? That's something that the whole world has to start taking a lot more seriously than it currently is. There was a point where the world did take it seriously for a bit, and then they decided not to anymore. I wonder when that came about. I think it was about 2 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe. No, a little bit longer, 10 years ago. Yeah, it was about then. But the other thing that we can do is those grey whales that are feeding in other spots, we can make sure that they're not disturbed. We can make sure that we at least limit our impact on a local level to these whales. And if we can stop the decline of these whales from our actions on a smaller level, it will still have an effect. It will still help whilst we whilst we try and deal with the bigger topic of climate change. So that was grey whales. Did you learn anything, OG? Geo or OG or anyone that's in
You know
chat actually.
when me and OG were hanging out, he had that realization that we're just 2 letters, reversed
It's
OG and GO.
it's OG. Okay, OG almost for a second there typed he didn't learn anything. That would have been funny. Okay, let's put you back in your pride of place there.
There we go.
There we are. That must have felt weird. I guess that's why you weren't talking, because like you're just in protest at being in the wrong spot.
Hey, I was just enjoying my spot over there.
Thank you, OG. So we'll wrap up soon, but we'll open it up to questions. If we got any questions in chat, we'll leave it for about like 5 more minutes to get your questions in, and like we'll answer them. If we go like a few minutes talk about random stuff, we not got questions, and then I think we end it there. So yeah. So Gia, what did you do anything whale related over in San Francisco?
No, I did not when I was out
Uh
there. It was for work, so we were,
okay.
doing a convention. Yeah, so it was just a hotel, convention center, and airport. Didn't really end up doing too much there. And that was also like I think that was also the first time I traveled without my parents, as well. So like it was definitely a like kind of first time adult thing there. But we do have a question from
We do have
OG.
a question. That's a difficult. I was hoping that was going to come up.
What are
So
your thoughts on the fishing industry in in deters deters to the
I think that's in reference to
OG?
this
Oh, and
ecosystem.
yeah, in reference to the ecosystem. I remember you talking about fishermen earlier. So what are your
So
thoughts on the fishing industry in reference to the ecosystem?
So here's the thing. We need to think about fishing in two groups. So we have recreational fishermen, or like or fishermen that go out with a rod and a line. They don't carry like nets or anything. And then
Well,
we
you
think
you
then
really
the
have 3.
yeah.
You have 3 because you have your recreational individuals, then you have your charter, captains who are taking otherwise recreational individuals that don't have their own means to go out, and then you have your commercial.
Yeah, the commercial one, I'm guessing the commercial one is what this question is about. Because okay, so what I said about fishermen previously in this video is more towards the recreational ones and the charter ones. The industrial fishermen, okay, so the commercial fishermen, they also want fish. They also still want there to be a lot of fish, because I mean that's how they make their money. That's how it's profitable to them. So we're talking about the same way that like we can talk to people on a certain level that they understand. Commercial fishing companies will understand the loss of revenue as well, and so that's why we need to have like big fish stocks. I also feel like anyone that works on these ships, even commercial fishing vessels, they do have an appreciation just generally for sea life as well. Um, I don't think any of them are ever happy when they bycatch like a porpoise in one of their nets, but commercial fishing is a lot bigger of a topic to tackle, because like I say, we can't ban commercial fishing. That's you can't do that. No one's going to agree to that. Like people like eating fish. I like eating fish. Um, you can't just ban commercial fishing. But what can you do? So let's say we have an endangered species of salmon, for instance. And salmon, we know from research and science, and we need a lot more science on this, by the way. We know from science that salmon will always return to the river that they spawned in for them to spawn. So what's the solution here? So we have fisheries that go way offshore, and they go out, they put out their nets, and they just catch whatever. And some of that is Chinook salmon, because you throw a net, how can you decide what you're catching? Like, you don't have any control over the fish that you're catching, and you end up, and this is why bycatch is such a big thing. You end up catching the wrong thing unintentionally, and you can't really say it then, 'cause now you've caught it illegally. So you'll probably just throw these dead fish back in the water. I don't know. I don't know if that's what they do, but
Yeah, so that's one of the things that so can be a little bit awkward in fishing is sometimes you do end up catching a fish that is illegal for you to take, but you in some form or fashion has died or been injured in some way where it's survival is
yeah,
questionable, and especially when you're talking about deep sea fish. There's barotrauma is extremely common, and while there are methods for trying to get those kind of fish back down in the best shape possible, sometimes they just come up dead, and unfortunately that is what the basically what the rule is you throw it back, and something else will get to eat it, but
something else will here.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, but that's really all you can do is try your best to return it in a state where it may survive, but sometimes that's not always possible.
So
And sometimes the shark gets to it first.
yeah. So I think it's important to realize that these commercial fishermen are somewhat, if they're fishing in that particular area, they're somewhat powerless to what they catch, and that's why it's important that they're fishing in the right areas. If we take the salmon example, if you bring those fisheries close to the rivers where these salmon spawn, so you'll know what salmon you're catching. You'll know what salmon are going into that river, because the salmon always go to the same river. So you can reduce bycatch by fishing in an area which has a higher proportion of what you're trying to catch, rather than what you're trying to not accidentally catch. And this is where science comes in as well, because like you mentioned, deep sea fishing, that is a lot more difficult to do, to fish in the right spots for certain fish. But
Hmm.
this is one example of something we can do: is make sure we have the science, and make sure that our commercial fisheries are in the right space as well. I also, by the way, I'm not going to get into fish farms, which I think are a terrible idea. And the other one I want to mention regarding this is fishing gear. Entanglements almost always happen due to fishing gear. And really, the answer to this isn't immediately to ban this stuff. Eventually we do have to ban this kind of equipment. But like I say, you can't just ban it, because you want these fishermen on side. So how do you do it? You find alternatives. You get some intelligent people into a room with some intelligent engineers, and you create a solution. You if you can develop a net that is able to like not catch like porpoises, for instance. I don't know how you do that, but maybe some intelligent person can will invent that one day. Or let's say you've got these long lines that will that won't be, they won't, let's say if they're long lines, I don't know what you do with. Maybe make them weaker so that the whale can actually pull off of them. Um, I know Lobsterpot, I think, was the one that WDC helped develop something else, where it was a Lobsterpot that's activated by a GPS. And if you know anything about crab and lobster pots, usually they have a line linking up to a buoy to mark their location. and this is so the fishermen can come back and collect their lobster pot. So what WDC have invented is a system where it's like a lobster pot, but it doesn't use a line and a buoy. It uses a GPS location, and there's an app that you have, which you can use the app to trigger a balloon that's within the lobster the pot. So basically, this balloon will then let you know where this pot is. But it's a balloon that's not going to be there the entire time. It's not going to have a line that's in the water the entire time. So it's not going to be an entanglement risk until you're there on scene. At which point you're you're there for like I don't know how long it takes to take a crab pot up, but let's say it takes an hour. You're there for an hour. Nothing's gonna get entangled in an hour. Something will get entangled in the weeks that you could leave it there, though. So
Yeah, and I can give you what the immediate counterpoint from a lobster fisherman is gonna be is, well, one, how much does it cost me, for each one of these,
precisely,
these balloons, and I assume some kind of cartridge to fill it with, with air so that it will rise. Um,
precisely.
you know, and then, so how much does it cost me to first to put it on there, but then second to reload it? And what's my backup plan if the trap fell over backwards or, on its top, and so now that's trapped underneath it? Do I need to have one on the top and the bottom to ensure that I don't lose it? Because otherwise,
I
I'm gonna have to drag a hook around until I find my line.
I think the balloon can actually write the traps if based on what I've
Mhm.
seen on the video of them presenting it. But it's
Yeah,
the
but there's
real the
there's
real
still there's
point.
still times where it could.
Yeah, the real point is to do with the cost as well, because that's something where
Mhm.
that's where we can get the intelligent people and the designers as well to design a cheaper way of doing it, like cheaper
Yeah.
materials, things like that.
Because part of the issue that I see with this is too is that, like, lobster fishermen, they do like 5 pot, strings.
Yeah,
So when they go and they take up, a string of 100, and like they're if I remember right, like this one particular lobsterman I'm referencing, I think he fishes something like 800 or 900 traps, and each one of those is in a 5 string, line. Now he may only, go out and work, 3 or 400 of them in a day because that's all he has the time to do. But, like, let's say even if it was, a dollar, a dollar a string, that's still $100 a day that you're adding to his cost, that, he now needs to get that much more lobster every string or every day to cover that cost. So, you do kind of that's where I would look at the counterpoint. If it was a dollar a string, you might be you might be able to get away with that. But if it starts becoming like two, three, four, $5, for each reload, that just starts to become impractical unless the price of lobster doubles.
exactly. So this maybe yeah this is maybe a point that I didn't like stress enough in the video well in the podcast um is actually how important it is to be developing alternatives and not just developing like here's a lobster pot that's like 10 times more expensive but it's good for the environment. It's also making one that's incentivizes using as well, like come up with a solution and incent like a better solution, like an alternative, a replacement, but you also have
Yeah,
to incentivize it. So that kind of pulls
you will
everything we talked about together.
Yeah, you'll always you will get a commercial you will get all of the commercial fishermen on board if you improve if what you're doing actually improves something. You improve, their lost trap rate, you improve their catch rate, you improve, their efficiency, like
Mm,
you improve their costs. You have to improve something it doesn't always have to be economical, but it can just be, it can just be in terms of making things more efficient, making things easier, making it better, that
Make it
that
bigger.
that's yeah, yeah, that's what will, that's what will drive them, that they'll, because, like, they're always, they're always looking to make things, more efficient. How can they do better? It's just like any other business. And so if what
Mm,
you're doing helps them do that, and along the way also, helps conservation, then they're 100% be for it.
yeah. So, do we have any other questions in chat? We'll leave it for like a minute. Otherwise, I think that's where we wrap up.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good spot.
'Cause this actually been a longer podcast than I expected it to be. I didn't think we would be talking so much on this subject and until we started getting going. Um,
Hmm.
because yeah, this is a big, broad subject, and there's so many different facets to it. And yeah, we need to think more before taking actions. I think that's the thing. Also, more
Yep.
science, more science,
More
always
science.
more science. Um, so thank you for joining me today, Geovitz, and thank you to those in chat that were here chatting with us and providing us some questions as well. And to those that are going to see this on YouTube once it's uploaded, thank you for watching. We are going to be doing this regularly now, where we'll be we'll be multicasting the live recording to both Twitch and YouTube, and the YouTube will be on this channel that you'll be watching. So those will be always the same time, Saturday, 5 p.m. for France time, 11 a.m. for Eastern, and 8 a.m. for Pacific. Sorry, it is a little bit early for you guys in the Pacific, but this is, we can't cater to every time zone perfectly, but this is probably the best balance we can really get towards our main audience. Um, if you did like this, like subscribe to the World Talk podcast channel. In fact, we're gonna plug this over on Twitch as well, the podcast channel. And yeah, so what are we working on? What are we working on in the future? So we're gonna have a video about like some small piece of advice that I recorded on my phone whilst I was in the Salish Sea. That's gonna come out at some point. We're also gonna have the video on the whale museum. That's gonna be coming up probably in August. September, I'm also planning a video about captivities. The captivity stuff is gonna most likely be a two-part mini-series. We're going to be talking about captivity, and then we're going to be talking about sea sanctuaries. And I may have a special guest on for one of those. We'll see. Yeah, I also sent feelers reaching out about another video, but I'm not going to reveal any information on that yet, because if they say no, the video is just straight up not happening. If they don't
Well,
respond, the video is straight up not happening. So
subscribe to the channel, and if it comes out, you'll see it.
yeah. What was my command? It was podcast end.
I think so.
And there we are. Okay. See you guys next month.
Yeah.
Do I have to yell that?
No, not really. Bye.